The black homeless man said he knew how to help the white officer's daughter wake up and was laughed at until the entire hospital went silent. "Get that bum out of here." The nurse didn't even lower her voice. The man stood at the entrance of St. Aurelia Hospital, barefoot, holding a small pouch in his trembling hand. No one knew his name. They just knew the stench that came with him. And they assumed the same thing they always did: crazy, drunk, and dangerous. He wasn't any of those things. But when you're black, homeless, and mumbling something about healing light, you might as well be invisible or worse, a threat. The hospital was in chaos. Officer Gerald Whitmore, a decorated police lieutenant known for his hard line on keeping the city clean, stood outside room 313, hands shaking. His daughter, Emily, lay in a coma, the result of a freak accident during a school field trip. The doctors couldn't explain it: no head trauma, no neurological issues. She just wouldn't wake up. The specialists whispered in corners, ran tests, injected steroids, and adjusted wires. Nothing worked. The machines hummed like a ticking clock, counting down the end of hope. That's when he showed up. The homeless man had been sitting across the street from the hospital for weeks, always staring at the third floor. Nobody paid him any attention. Not until he walked in barefoot, shaking, eyes wide like he was in a trance. "I know what's wrong with the girl," he said, voice hoarse from silence and winter. And everyone in the ER laughed. A few sneered. One intern even took out their phone, already filming. "You think this is a joke?" barked Dr. Raines, head of neurology. "You think this is funny?" The man didn't blink. "She's stuck between." "Between what, Einstein? Heaven and hell?" One nurse chuckled. The man nodded solemnly. "Not heaven, not hell. Just not here." Officer Whitmore turned, looked the man up and down like he was dog crap on a boot. "If you don't get the hell out of here in 5 seconds, I'll make sure you spend the night in lockup." The homeless man didn't move. He held out the pouch. "This will help. She needs to smell it. Then she'll know how to come back." Security moved fast. 2 guards grabbed him and started dragging him away, one hand accidentally knocking the pouch from his hand. It hit the ground, spilling dry crushed leaves and a soft, pink powder that shimmered oddly under the fluorescence. "What the hell is that?" a young intern muttered, crouching down to examine it. "Probably drugs," someone scoffed. The intern frowned. "No, it smells like hibiscus. And cedar. Weird." The man, still being dragged out, screamed one last time. "She's calling out, and no one's listening. She's scared in the dark. Let me help her." But they were already shoving him out the automatic doors. That should have been the end of it. Only, Emily's heart rate began to spike. Alarms beeped. Doctors rushed in, barking orders. But no one could explain it. She was reacting. Something in her body was responding. Was it the meds? Someone asked. No new meds. Could be spontaneous neural activity, Dr. Raines offered, already sounding like he didn't believe himself. Hours passed. The man was long gone. Emily didn't wake up, but she moved. Her eyelids twitched. Her hand gripped the sheet. A single tear rolled down her cheek. And the nurses, one by one, started to whisper about the homeless man, the pouch, the way she reacted right after. 2 days later, Officer Whitmore came back early. He looked like hell. His uniform was crumpled, his eyes hollow. He'd barely slept. He sat beside Emily's bed and did something he hadn't done since she was born, prayed. That's when he saw it, the pouch. Someone had scooped it into a sealed plastic bag and left it in a drawer, tagged as unidentified herbal substance. He opened it, cautiously. The smell hit him like a memory, sun, warmth, something his grandmother used to burn during old family rituals back when they lived in Georgia. Something sacred. He didn't believe in any of that. Not since the academy. Not since he started thinking order was more powerful than faith. But now, he took a pinch, as gently as he could, and waved it under Emily's nose. She didn't move. But the heart monitor spiked. A steady, slow beat became rapid. Her eyelids fluttered. Her lips moved, though no sound came out. Whitmore stood, heart hammering. Emily. Nothing. Just twitching. But unmistakable. It was her. Trying. He ran downstairs. The security team refused to say where they'd taken the man. He wasn't arrested, they said. He just vanished. The next day, Whitmore did something unthinkable. He put out a BOLOA, beyond the lookout, not for a suspect, but for a homeless black man in his 50s, approximately 5 feet 11 inches, unarmed, possibly mentally ill, wanted for questioning in connection to a medical incident. The city went insane. Social media erupted. Cop puts out manhunt for homeless man who tried to help his daughter. The headlines were brutal, but Whitmore didn't care. He just wanted to find him. Because now, he believed, not in the man, but in whatever was moving through him. 4 days later, someone found the man in an alley near Riverfront Park. He was unconscious, breathing shallow. Whitmore came personally, against orders, and had him brought back to the hospital. And for the first time, the entire staff didn't laugh. They watched in silence as the man, now cleaned and clothed, stood at Emily's bedside. He held the pouch again, full this time, mixed with something else, roots and what looked like feathers. He whispered in a language no one recognized. Emily gasped. Then her eyes opened. No one moved. No one could. Tears poured down her cheeks. She looked around. "Daddy," she whispered. The room erupted. Doctors sprinted in. Nurses cried. Whitmore fell to his knees. But it wasn't over. Because when they asked the man how he did it, what the powder was, what the ritual mean, he said nothing. Just smiled. And walked out the door. Only then did someone notice. The machines weren't connected. The pouch wasn't medicine. The powder wasn't synthetic. And yet, it worked. For the first time in St. Aurelia's history, the head of medicine wrote in an official report, "No medical explanation available." People still argued. Said it was coincidence. Said the man was lucky. Said the hospital had missed something obvious. But no one could explain why Emily, 3 days later, said, "I saw him in my dream. He told me to follow the light, that I could come back if I was brave." No one could explain how she remembered him even though she'd been unconscious the entire time. And no one could explain why Whitmore resigned a week later, gave up his badge, and began volunteering full-time at the city's largest homeless shelter. When asked why, he simply said, "Because the people we ignore are the ones who sometimes carry the light." The man disappeared again. No cameras caught where he went. No records existed of his name, birth, or past. But for weeks after, patients began asking about him. Not just in Emily's ward, everywhere. Oncology, geriatrics, even the psych unit. They whispered stories of a barefoot man who appeared at the edge of their bed when they couldn't sleep, who hummed songs no one knew but somehow felt familiar, who said nothing but somehow understood everything. The hospital staff started noticing strange things too. A child who hadn't spoken in months began talking after waking from a dream about the quiet man with stars in his eyes. A nurse battling late-stage breast cancer went into spontaneous remission and claimed someone whispered to her one night, "Drink the warm water near the moon." No one understood it, but her PET scans came back clean. In the hallways of St. Aurelia, silence grew thicker. Not fear, not reverence, something more complicated: guilt. Because they had mocked him, laughed at him, dismissed him, and now they were beginning to believe. But belief came with a price. A local news station ran a story titled, "The Homeless Healer of St. Aurelia." It went viral. TikToks, YouTube interviews, conspiracy theories, all of it exploded in a matter of days. Half the city wanted to find the man and worship him. The other half wanted to prove it was a hoax. Reporters dug deep. Some claimed he was a displaced Vietnam vet. Others swore he was the son of a southern hoodoo priestess. A few went as far as calling him an angel or a demon. None of them were right, because the man refused to explain himself. When he was finally spotted again sitting in front of a shelter just miles from the hospital, said the same thing to every journalist that approached him. "I'm not the miracle. I just listen better than most." The interviewers hated that answer. But former Officer Gerald Whitmore didn't. He visited the man once a week now, quietly, without fanfare, without cameras, just two people sitting on a concrete step, sharing stale coffee in silence. One day he asked, "Why did you help her?" The man shrugged. "Because no one else was listening." Whitmore frowned. "They were trying everything. Doctors, specialist gel. We had a priest bless her room." "That's not listening. That's fixing." The man sipped his coffee, his hands still trembling from cold or something deeper. There's a difference between fixing a broken thing and hearing a hurting soul. Whitmore didn't speak for a long time. Finally, he said, "You know they laughed at you. All of us did, including me. I know. You should be angry." The man looked at him, smiled. "I was once. A long time ago, when I still thought people could see." Whitmore didn't know what to say. "See what?" The man tapped his own chest. "This. The thing that don't change when your skin does." When your job does. When your house burns down. Or when your little girl's eyes open after 2 weeks in the dark. Whitmore looked away. His throat tightened. You talk like a prophet. I talk like a man who's had time to listen. Word spread. Soon, patients were requesting him by name though no one knew it. They called him the quiet one. The walker. The listener. Some doctors tried to ban him from the hospital. Unlicensed spiritual interference, they called it. But none of them could deny his presence helped. Not always. Not perfectly. But consistently enough to unsettle the arrogant and give hope to the forgotten. There were whispers of a boy in palliative care who no longer screamed at night. A woman with ALS who could suddenly feel her fingertips again. Stories piled up, and with them came the noise. More media, more attention, more pressure, and finally, backlash. A prominent surgeon wrote a scathing op-ed in the Washington Tribune. The cult of the homeless prophet is a threat to medical integrity. He accused the hospital of promoting pseudoscience. Claimed the man was exploiting desperate families. That it was all placebo, hysteria, collective delusion. And people listened. The board at St. Aurelia called an emergency meeting. Lawyers got involved. Insurance companies raised flags. One night, Whitmore got a call from a nurse named Kayla. She was crying. They're going to ban him, she said. I don't know what to do. Whitmore hung up, drove to the hospital, and walked straight into the meeting. He didn't knock. He didn't ask. He just stood at the front of the boardroom, stared down the 11 people who had once been his colleagues. You're going to silence the only person who's given us more healing in 2 months than we've seen in 2 years. The chairman folded his hands. Gerald, we respect your experience, but this man isn't licensed, trained, or medically accountable. What happens if someone dies after he sees them? What happens if they die because you refuse to listen? Silence. Then the chairman leaned forward. Be honest with us. Do you think he's magic? No, Whitmore said. I think you are blind. Another board member, a woman named Dr. Lang, cut in. You're asking us to risk malpractice suits on the word of a man who can't prove his identity. That's not blind. That's suicide. Whitmore didn't flinch. I'm asking you to risk your pride. He stepped closer, looked at each of them. You've all walked past people like him 100 times. Called them dirty. Called them crazy. Told your kids to look away. And now one of them's doing something you don't understand and your first instinct is to shut it down. His voice cracked. Emily should be dead. I've seen people with less trauma die in front of me. But she's not dead. She's alive. Because of him. He took a breath. Do what you want. Fire me again if you need to. But if you send that man away, you're sending away every patient he's helped. Everyone he could help. And for what? Your comfort. The room stayed quiet. No one gave an answer that night. But the band never came. The man continued to walk the halls. But he never stayed long. He'd show up. Sit with a child. Hum a tune. Hold a hand. Whisper into the ear of someone fading. And then he'd vanish. Some said he was a ghost. A spirit. A lesson. Others said he was just a man who hurt too much to stay still. But Emily? She knew better. Weeks after waking, she told her therapist something that chilled the woman to her core. He wasn't in my dream, she said. He was the dream. What do you mean? I was falling, Emily whispered. In the dark. It felt like years. And then I heard music. A song with no words. She paused. And he caught me. Not like, in his arms. But with his voice. He sang me back. The hospital tried to protect the man after the media frenzy gave him access through side entrances, let him visit after hours, kept his identity off the records. But secrets have short lives in loud places. One evening, a patient's parent recognized him and posted a blurry photo online. It was shared thousands of times within hours. Comments flooded in. He's a fraud. That's Thomas Ellie, used to be a jazz musician. He was arrested for trespassing 2 years ago. Why are we letting him near children? Wake up. This is spiritual manipulation. Let him be. He's the only reason my daughter smiles again. The hospital was forced to issue a statement. It was sterile, careful. We cannot confirm or deny the involvement of any non-licensed individual in patient recovery. All healing processes are overseen by certified medical professionals. It pleased no one. The board asked Whitmore to speak with the man again. They wanted answers. Something they could put in a report. Something rational. Whitmore found him sitting on a bench outside the emergency wing, peeling a bruised orange with shaking fingers. He looked thinner, tired. You okay? Whitmore asked. The man didn't look up. The noise is getting louder. Whitmore sat beside him. People want to know who you are. Does it matter? It might, if it protects you. The man looked up, eyes worn and quiet. They're not angry at me. They're angry at the possibility of me. Whitmore nodded slowly. You used to be someone, didn't you? Before all this. The man smiled softly. We're all someone before the world tells us we're not. He didn't elaborate. But that night, Whitmore pulled records. Dug deep. He found a name, Thomas Ely, just like one of the commenters had said. Born in 1961, Atlanta. Jazz pianist. Played with some of the best in the 80s. Toured. Recorded. Vanished from public life in 1993 after his wife died in a car crash. No kids. No criminal record until a trespassing charge in 2017, when he was found sleeping inside an abandoned community center. A man who once filled concert halls. Reduced to whispers in hospital corridors. Whitmore printed the file. Showed it to him the next day. Ely barely glanced at it. You could clear your name, Whitmore said. People might respect you more. I'm not here to be respected. Then why are you here? Ely looked up, and for the first time, his voice dropped low like something deeper was moving beneath it. Because souls scream loud when no one's listening. And hospitals, they're the loudest quiet places in the world. The next day, security found a protest forming outside the hospital. A crowd held signs that read "Science first, no faith in folklore, real doctors only." Inside, patients cried. Children asked why the man with the songs wasn't coming that day. A boy with leukemia named Marcus had refused to speak since his diagnosis. Only opened up to Ely, who never asked questions, only listened and played rhythms with his hands on the bed. That day, Marcus curled into himself and didn't speak again. Later that week, Ely didn't return. 2 days. 3. A week. The whispers turned to worry. Had he left? Had something happened? Whitmore searched the shelters. Walked through alleys. Asked at soup kitchens. Nothing. But on the 8th day, a nurse named Sarah found a folded piece of cloth in the chapel. Inside it, a note. No signature. Just a line. The light isn't in me. It's in you. Learn to listen. The hospital changed after that. Slowly. The chaplain started holding listening hours. No sermons. No music. Just silence and space to breathe. Doctors began adding mindfulness rooms to each wing. Nurses were trained in trauma-informed care not just for patients, but for each other. Patients were encouraged to share their fears, not to fix them, but to name them out loud. The impact was quiet but real. Recovery rates shifted. Families stayed calmer. Staff turnover dropped. The hospital CEO called it a systemic emotional recalibration. But Whitmore just called it learning how to see. Emily, now fully recovered, returned to school. She started a club called The Quiet Ones for kids who felt invisible. She filled the walls with drawings. Not of her accident, not of the coma, but of a man with tired eyes and a pouch of light. One afternoon, as Whitmore sat in her room, watching her paint, she asked, "Do you think he was real?" Whitmore paused. "He was more real than most people I know. He said I had a light," she whispered. "What do you think he meant?" Whitmore looked at his daughter alive, laughing, covered in paint. "I think he meant you don't have to wait for the world to see you before you shine." She smiled. Outside, it rained. Inside, it was warm. Months passed. Saint Aurelia received an anonymous donation, $3 million. No name, just a message. Use this to build a place for silence. For listening. For healing without shame. They did. They built the Ely Centera circular space with no equipment, no walls, no judgment. Just floor cushions, warm light, and room for people to sit together and not fix each other. And still, sometimes, on quiet nights, patients swore they saw him. By the vending machines. In the elevator reflection. Humming an old jazz tune that no one could place. Doctors stopped questioning it. They had learned to listen. And listening changed everything. 1 year later, St. Aurelia Hospital looked different. Not in its walls or its beds, but in how it breathed. The Ely Center became the heart of the hospital. Patients, doctors, janitors, and grieving parents passed through its quiet doors every day. Some prayed. Some just sat. Some wept for people long gone. But all of them listened. In that stillness, something changed. One afternoon, a woman in her 70s sat across from a terminally ill child and braided her hair in silence. A young surgeon who'd just lost his first patient knelt beside an old man who'd lost his wife 50 years ago, and they sat, shoulder to shoulder, not speaking. No one told them to. No one explained how. The hospital that once laughed at a homeless black man now honored him in every corner of its care. But outside those walls, the world remained the same. Angry, suspicious, quick to judge, slower to understand. Articles kept surfacing. Homeless myth or spiritual messiah? Hospital follows rituals over real science. Is medicine losing its grip on reality? And when that failed to stir rage, they dug deeper into Thomas Ely's past. A former colleague from the jazz world came forward with stories of his mental breakdowns. A distant cousin told reporters he wasn't well after his wife died. He talked to the air. They tried to paint him as unstable, a man with nothing left, a wandering mind mistaken for magic. But the more they tried to twist the story, the more people pushed back. Because by then, his truth was living inside hundreds of people. The boy who spoke again. The woman who dreamed in color after 20 gray years. The mother who forgave herself for not being able to save her child. And of course Emily. At 13, she stood in front of her class, trembling, holding a folded paper. She had been asked to give a talk on someone who changed her life. She didn't choose her father. She didn't choose her mother. She chose the listener. People said he was crazy, that he didn't belong, that he didn't look right or talk right or live right. But when I was lost and scared and my body wouldn't wake up came. He didn't shout. He didn't try to be loud. He just whispered into the dark. And I heard him. And I came back. When she finished, her teacher wiped her eyes. Half the room was crying. The video of her speech, recorded by a classmate, went viral. Again. But this time, no one twisted it. The caption read, "We judged him for how he looked. He healed us with how he listened." After that, sightings of Ely all but stopped. No one knew where he went. But the ripple he started kept spreading. One day, a nurse at a hospital in Phoenix heard a patient humming the same melody that Ely once played. Another in Detroit swore her dying mother whispered, "Thank the quiet man," before her final breath. There were no photos. No evidence. Just stories. Like all great truths, he had become part of the fabric beneath the noise. Back at St. Aurelia, Whitmore continued volunteering. He scrubbed floors, delivered meals, sat with families. He no longer wore a badge. But somehow, he held more authority now than he ever did in uniform. His name tag simply read, Gerald. One evening, he walked the halls and noticed a young boy maybe 10 curled in a chair outside the ICU. Alone. Whitmore sat beside him. "You waiting for someone?" The boy nodded. "My sister's sick. They said she might not wake up." Whitmore nodded gently. "Can I sit with you a while?" "Sure." They sat. And then the boy whispered, "I wish the quiet man was real." Whitmore blinked. "Who told you about him?" "My mom. She said he used to come here, that he could help people find their way back." Whitmore smiled. It wasn't the smile of someone holding on to legend. It was the quiet recognition of a truth deeper than fact. "He is real," he said. "And if you listen closely, sometimes you can still hear him." The boy leaned against Whitmore's arm. And somewhere deep in the hum of machines and the rattle of carts and the heavy sighs of night there it was. A faint rhythm. A familiar tune. 2 notes repeated gently. Not loud. Not even close. Just enough for one heart to remember how to keep going. Whitmore closed his eyes. He didn't need to look. He didn't need proof. Because faith isn't about what you see. It's about what you feel when you finally learn to listen. That was the final gift. Not a miracle. Not a magic. But the quiet, earth-shaking revelation that sometimes the people we step over are the ones who carry the light. And if we stop laughing long enough, stop doubting, mocking, categorizing, we might just hear the voice that calls us home. The end. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.